my presentation is going to be complementary to what Brent talked about. It's not competing in any way. A lot of people will think that, either business owners invest in segregated funds with their operating expense account, or they invest in life insurance. And so I think the key to this entire combination of presentations is to elevate your conversation with your clients. Brent mentioned early on in the presentation about the trusted advisor at the table. And I pretty much, when I've done joint presentations with advisors in front of business owners, it's about elevating the advisor to that trusted level. It's about being on par with, pardon the pun, being on par with the accountant, the lawyer, the business advisor, and the business owner. So oftentimes they look at us and they are, well, you're just an insurance salesman, you're just an investment guy, you're transactional. To us have been in this business for a while, and Don touched on that, and I said, if you've grown up in the life insurance business, you know what it can do for the owner. You just need to kind of highlight that to them. So to me, I've spent over 20 years in the segregated fund space with some of the biggest companies in Canada, some of the biggest carriers. Here at Equitable Life, I find the freedom and the ability to work for a mutual company quite refreshing, to be honest with you. And so a lot of the ideas, a lot of the things that we put forward in this space is going to hinge on us as a mutual company, to what we're going to refer to going forward as the equitable effect. So let's get started on this. Segregated funds for business owners, a presentation I put together a long time ago. It's not, as you can tell by the graphics, it's not revolutionary in that I'm looking to reinvent the wheel. I just want to rehash some of the key points about investments and about why segregated funds for business owners work, especially in conjunction and in complement with what Brent talked about. So let's get started. As you know here, we're not talking about anything specific to anything you haven't seen before. The 5 benefits to segregated fund apply to whether you're an individual and to whether you're a business owner. The death benefit is key here, as Brent mentioned, is sale of assets or sales of businesses under duress oftentimes do not yield 100%. And so that death benefit, if you had passed away 2 years ago, if you had passed away last year, where would your equity stake be to your investments? And to the market, to the cycle in the market, you're looking at a substantial drop. Same thing if you're looking to liquidate your business under duress, you're looking at a substantial drop. And so that death benefit provides a real benefit to the business owner, to say that the money you invest in the segregated fund as part of your business operating account, this will be guaranteed to be principally protected. Somebody on the call mentioned GICs, and GICs are guaranteed. And to answer that question really briefly, I'm going to take a little bit of sidestep here. Yes, GICs are guaranteed, but the renewal rate is never guaranteed, meaning you are not always guaranteed to get the same rate again and again and again. So using fixed income to that benefit, to using the life insurance and participating in life insurance as an asset class, using that fixed income component into that guaranteed par fund is key. But also then leaving the equity side not at risk, but protecting that as well through these benefits, through the death benefit and the maturity benefit. So remember, you're not leaving the business owner exposed by putting that fixed income, converting that fixed income component of their investment into the life insurance, and then all of a sudden taking more risk in the equity side of it just to compensate. We want to protect the entirety of their investment world and the entirety of their business, and this is the way to do it. Privacy obviously is a key issue in my space. Reason why is because the world has become more litigious. The world under cyber threat and under cyber attacks and hacks, identity theft, all that has become more prevalent now than ever before. And so privacy becomes a real issue. Estate benefits, obviously, again, I'm preaching to the choir here. These are all touch points that will resonate with the individual and the business owner. So whatever hats they're wearing, those benefits will resonate with them. Credit protection, I'm going to touch on that a little bit more, simply because I think it's misrepresented in our world. And I think when people say business owners, seg funds, oh yeah, there's credit protection. I think we need to examine that, and we need to kind of make sure that we're representing that properly. So, what's your target market? Business owners, right? Are they looking for growth? So are they looking to grow their capital investment? And they can do that through the equity side. Are they looking for an income? Are you looking at their operating expenses? And how do we generate an income from that? Right? Are they looking for just that protection, that overall estate protection, and what they're leaving behind as an inheritance to the next generation? Now, the next generation for a business owner is not necessarily their familiar next generation. It could be the next owner in that business. It could be somebody buying into that business, to know that their investment is protected in principle and guaranteed on death could be a key talking point in negotiating the business purchase. So keep that in mind. Whatever guarantees, whatever stage of the cycle of that business is in, one of these key points could become very, very important to that business owner. So touch on these. This is not just for individuals. This is for the business owner and whatever stage of the business they're in. Now, credit protection. Let's touch on this. This is the dictionary, the information folder definition. In a segregated fund contract, the contract value may be protected from creditors in the event of a bankruptcy or lawsuit, provided that a family class beneficiary or irrevocable beneficiary has been named. And there's the definitions there. Now, this is as far as I want you to go in representing creditor protection to a business owner. You're not a lawyer. You don't know their situation. If they somehow get in trouble with the law through fraudulent conveyance, that credit protection is no protection at all. There was this anecdote when I first started in the business. There was a story coming out of Manulife US, and I was working for Manulife up here. But there was a story that we'd heard about the Enron debacle and how Kenneth Lay, the president of Enron, the CEO of Enron, rather, had tried to open up a segregated fund policy with Manulife for $300 million. Now, this was before the scandal broke, but something didn't smell fishy. So Manulife declined to accept the application, and lo and behold, a few months later, the Enron debacle blew up. And so, in that situation, had Manulife accepted the $300 million policy, they would not have been able to extend any credit protection. That seg fund policy would not have been able to extend any credit protection to Kenneth Lay, because again, he was deemed to have caused and created fraudulent conveyance. And so I don't want you to be out there saying, seg funds offer credit protection for any business owners unless it's structured properly. So family class beneficiary is defined in all provinces except Quebec as the spouse, child, parent, or grandchild of the annuitant. Keep that in mind. In Quebec, it's the spouse or any ascendant or descendant of the owner. That's the owner of the business. So please keep that in mind, key differentiators, and this is as far as I want you to represent that. Reason why is because, again, there's circumstances where creditor protection may not apply, depending on when the bankruptcy is filed or if bankruptcy should become an issue. These segregated fund policies can be unlocked in the purpose of fulfilling a bankruptcy claim. So anybody interested in that should review the circumstances with a lawyer and then structure the segregated fund properly in order to allow for that creditor protection. Now, what are your clients likely going to care about upon their death? If anybody has done consultations with business owners and their accountants, you'll know that typically the conversation goes like this. Here's your revenue for the year, and this is the amount of RSP contribution you need to make in order to offset that tax bill, right? Or as Brent talked about, is reduce the tax bill with a participating whole life policy. But in offering that solution, it really doesn't provide the extent of service that the business owner should be provided, which is the fact that a segregated fund, unlike a mutual fund, can provide with a named beneficiary, the privacy of estate settlement, the guarantees I mentioned, a maturity and the death benefit, and the availability of creditor protection. So in that RSP, if you come across a business owner who's just been plowing money into their personal RSPs because that's all they've ever been told and discussed with their accountant, just know that that RSP can be better served using a segregated fund for the reasons I mentioned earlier. Now, if it's just in a mutual fund, it's a fancy roller coaster ride. And if anything in the last 3 years has highlighted is the fact that every mutual fund is a fancy roller coaster ride with no guarantees, no promises, and definitely no privacy and quick estate settlement. Okay, so something to keep in mind. Now, investment accounts are key to this conversation because these are non-registered investments. So we do need to examine the possible tax liability impacted by investing in the segregated fund. And so investments held by a corporation, a non-registered account, are going to be taxed every year. Investment gains and losses can be claimed, unlike in a mutual fund. Segregated funds do flow out capital losses. One of the key advantages to using segregated funds versus mutual funds. There's no maximum contribution limit in this because it's a non-registered account. So you don't have to sit there and be subject to a maximum contribution of an RSP. You're looking at no maximum contribution limit inside the corporation. However, and again, Brent talked about this in his presentation, is the nature of the investment has a direct impact on how much tax that business owner is going to pay. So make sure that if the interest is covered by the participating whole life policy, the alternative to the fixed income, then the rest of the portfolio is at least more tax advantaged if invested in equities, whereby the capital gains are going to be more advantaged, dividends are going to be more advantaged as well, and there's the possibility that losses in a portfolio will also be flowed out to the business owner. There is no mutual fund that provided a loss, an unrealized capital loss over the last year to their unit holders. Reason why is because mutual fund holds the loss and carries it forward inside its own trust. Segregated funds do not. Segregated funds flow that out. So if there's any unrealized capital losses due to transactions from the fund manager, if you had a loss in value, there likely will be a corresponding capital loss paid out to you. And so, again, highly beneficial when you compare mutual funds to segregated funds. But it is important to pay attention because this will be held in a non-registered account inside the corporation. And the other aspect of it is, again, the three parties to a segregated fund contract. But how you talk about them is, I think, crucial in how you elevate your position as that trusted advisor. Remember, table full of experts, legal, accounting, business experts. You want to be the investment expert. And so the who is who needs to be examined. And the business owner needs to understand that each party to these contracts is crucial to the health and success of the business. Here's what I mean. The owner of a segregated fund contract is the corporation. The annuitant is the main shareholder, the primary business owner. The beneficiary could either be the corporation again, or if you want to examine credit protection, declare one of the family class beneficiaries I discussed earlier. However, they have to have no involvement with the business. If there's income splitting, if the spouse is opening mail, if they're working in the warehouse in the back, and you declare them a beneficiary, there's no credit protection extended. So keep that in mind, please. Non-shareholder, not involved in the business, and a family class beneficiary will, under most circumstances, afford creditor protection to the policy. Now, the owner in this case is the corporation. Now, is it an operating company? Is the money to be used for operating expenses? Or is it a holding company? Is it a professional corporation? Are you talking to a doctor, a lawyer, an architect, a dentist? So who are you speaking with, and what type of corporation is involved in this? Now, the corporation is the signer of all documents. They are the ones that pay tax. So whatever the marginal tax rate is inside the corporation, the OpCo, the professional corporation, that's what will be applied to that interest, dividend, or capital gain and loss that gets flowed out. The policy owner is responsible for all that taxation over the life of the policy. So if you're doing this with holding company investments, then the structure is inside the holding company. If you're doing this with the operating company for benefit of growth or operating expenses, then you're doing this inside of the OpCo. Now, the annuitant represents the life of the contract. I'm not telling you anything new here, but the contract ends upon the death of the annuitant. If you have multiple business owners, partners, is it worthwhile to have a successor owner and a successor annuitant? Is somebody coming in demonstrating a willingness to take on the business? Is a new partner coming in? Is it a venture capitalist? Is it a white knight? Is it somebody who's just buying the business in real time? Does that person all of a sudden then need to be made successor annuitant? So that discussion now becomes part of the discussion about business transition. How do we transition? And what is my exit strategy as a business owner? And how does that reflect in the investments I hold? Remember, with segregated funds, a lot of restrictions are tied to the age of the annuitant. So how do we manipulate that contract? Not manipulate, I should say. Manipulate is a bad word. But how do we massage that contract in order to maximize its benefits? Do we have a successor annuitant who's younger than 80? And then does that trigger some of the other features of the policy, which are resets, maybe enhanced equity exposure in different funds, depending on the carrier you use, and so on and so on. And so keep in mind that the type of contract you buy not only provides the guarantee of either 75% death benefit or 100% death benefit, but can also unlock key features such as resets, whether they're automatic, whether they're discretionary, with the carrier that you're using. So keep that in mind, because the annuitant and the age of the annuitant determines on whether or not you have access to and unlock those features. Now, sometimes it's beneficial for an older company owner to use a younger member as the annuitant. We call this borrow in age. And so if that's the case, if the person stepping in is going to carry on the business, whether they're a child, a grandchild, or just somebody who's shown an aptitude and is willing to take on the business after the death of the primary annuitant, then maybe we need to maintain that by borrowing the younger life and maintain death benefit of 100% to the business and maintain those reset features that I talked about. And so it can provide ownership opportunity at an older age, but with a younger life as part of that business continuity. So again, all of a sudden, we've defined who the owner of the policy would be, what type of corporation it should be, whether it's OpCo, HoldCo, professional corporation. And now we've also identified key transition and succession planning ideas and opportunities by defining and finding out who the annuitant on the policy should be. A mutual fund, no chance that those conversations are going to go anywhere beyond here's some equity investments you can make and here's their cost in the MERs. That's where the conversation ends. It's a dead end. And so by using segregated funds as part of this business owner conversation, you're elevating yourself and you're introducing ideas and opportunities to that business owner that were never available before. So again, use that to your advantage. Use the three parts of the policy to extend that conversation. Find out what that strategy is going to look like. Is there a joint ownership opportunity, right? Do we separate the segregated funds into different policy based on the different partners, right? Is it a key part of the business that is multi-divisional, meaning there's one division that one partner is in charge of, another division that is another partner is in charge of. And how do we equalize that, right? Utilizing a buy-sell contract and stipulate what the guarantees are, right? Now, if one owner is older than the other, may not be able to get a 100% death benefit. You need to address that. And how you address that, maybe using an insured GIC as the alternative. So again, there's opportunity for that conversation that are simply not available when the conversation is as in depth as here's your revenue, here's your offsetting RSP contribution, and here's some mutual funds that my bank advisor can recommend to you, right? It's all about elevating the conversation and making you the trusted advisor. Now, a successor annuitant doesn't have to be declared at the initial step, right? At the initial step, you may be dealing with a young business owner, but let them know that down the road, the contract will allow for that successor owner, a successor annuitant declaration if they find somebody suitable enough. If they have a child who's all of a sudden grown into the business, if they have a white knight that's willing to take on the business and finance it and continue it, do they have somebody who's shown, again, that propensity to manage the business in later stages? That's something that can be added and used as part of that policy without collapsing it, without moving it forward. Okay. Again, the third part of it is the beneficiary. And again, this is who receives the death benefit. In the case of the corporation, you have to make a decision whether it's the corporation that gets the money back and it's to be dispersed according to the needs of the creditors, liquidate inventory, pay off the invoicing and accounts payable, whatever the case may be, or is the determination to be made for family class beneficiaries, which will allow them for the money to exit the corporation, and the tax accountant will make allowances for that as part of their terminal tax bill. But who is that beneficiary going to be? Have that conversation. You can have more than one beneficiary. You can have revocable or irrevocable. And you can also have primary beneficiaries or add-on contingent beneficiaries later on in life. Remember, younger business owner, having children, having mature children, having grandchildren who could potentially take over the business. It's important to allow the business owner the flexibility to define those components down the road and for you to highlight what those policy options are. You can't do that with a mutual fund. You can't do that with an RSP outside of the corporation. It's all defined by a segregated fund policy owned by the business. And so one thing to touch on, and I know we're running short on time here, but one thing to touch on is the need for an irrevocable beneficiary. In my experience, very few situations require an irrevocable beneficiary designation. The reason why is because it's very restrictive. If that irrevocable beneficiary dies before the owner and annuitant, that contract is frozen in time. I can't change the investment. I can't change anything about the policy. I can't even change the address where I'm sending the tax bills and the statements if the company has moved to a different location without the signed authority of that irrevocable beneficiary. So be very careful when you define an irrevocable beneficiary and ask whether this is really and truly necessary. Most of the time, if you structure the segregated fund properly, you will not require an irrevocable beneficiary designation, which could potentially freeze up the policy from any They
It
think
looks
that they
like,
know our business. They always know that they need an irrevocable beneficiary. Sorry.
guys, thanks a lot for today. You did a great job, as always. We knew you would. Brent, lots of ideas around life insurance. I know you're a strong resource at Equitable Life for us. So I'd encourage anybody that's looking for some life insurance ideas to have a chat with Brent. He's quite a wealth of knowledge, does a lot of reading. I think he's up about 2 books a week in the insurance business. He's a very voracious reader of the insurance and a student of the business. Good guy for you to know. Giuliano, again, very strong in the investment side. He's been in the investment business. How many years have you been in the investment?
23.
23 years in the investment business. So you've seen a couple of corrections in the market. You know how to protect us on the downside, and lots of good ideas as well. So again, guys, thanks very much. This was recorded. We will have it up on Win Big. Thanks a lot, guys. Have a great day. Thanks everybody for joining us today, and we'll talk to you again soon.